Okay, so we're working on problem 7-5A. We're going to be covering the three inventory methods, FIFO, LIFO, and weighted average. I will be starting and stopping on the video to condense time. And as we go through, at least for the FIFO and the LIFO, always remember you want to keep in mind that we're looking for which cost value to use. And we're going to apply that cost value to at least what's remaining at the end of the period to get the total value of the inventory at that point in time. So the first one we're going to be working on is FIFO. Let's take a quick look at the chart here. We have purchases, invoices. So we have the model that was purchased. We have our beginning inventory amounts and the values, the cost. And then we have the purchases, the first purchase, the second purchase, the third purchase, and then the ending count of inventory at the end of the year. The information that we fill in these charts here is going to represent what's on hand at the end of the period, or in this case, it's the year. And when we start putting the information into here, we're going to, since we're dealing with FIFO, the first in, first out, we really have to start at the most recent purchases and work backwards to populate this so that we can get the most accurate number of items and the proper cost on hand. So now let's take a look at this one. We're looking at A10. There's nothing on January 1st, but their first purchase is 4 units at 64. The second is 4 at 70, and the third is 4 at 76. Now, at the end of the period, there are 6 left over. So in order to determine what the current value is on hand, we're going to start here, right? Because we know that these are still on hand. And then we work our way backwards, and we know that only 2 of these are on hand. So we're first going to populate the 4 at 76, and then the 2 at 70. Okay, so I've plugged that in. 4 at 76 equals the cost of 304, and 2 at 70 equals the cost of 140, still on hand. Now let's take a look at B15. They have an opening inventory, a beginning. They made the 3 purchases during the time period, and they have 8 left on hand. So what do we need to do? We start over here. We have 6 at 184, and we have 2 at 170. We're going to put it down here, and we're going to populate the information. Okay, now I'm going to do this one, E60. And let's take a look. Again, we have a beginning inventory, the 3 purchases during the year, and then we only have 5 left on hand. Now, make note in this one, if we only have 5 left on hand, we're only really looking at this one. We don't have to go in and take any parts from any of these here, right? Because we have the last 5 on hand that are remaining. So 5 at 70 means we only have 350 left over. Okay, so I've populated every single one of the items going down. All you'll need to do is just follow the same process for each and every one of these. So you could take a look and compare and see what I did as I went down the line. For instance, the next one would have been G83. So we know we have 9 at hand. So we're only going to take 9 at 259, 9 at 259, multiply the 2 together, and you get the total amount. And then down below here, all we did was we added up all the items in this column to get the total cost. Okay, now we're going to move on the last in, first out method, meaning that the last items purchased in are the first to go out, meaning that our count is going to now come from the left side so that we can really, the items purchased earlier really represent what's going to be the ending inventory, okay? So now the 6 is going to start in this direction, and you're going to see that our numbers may change and are going to change even in the first one, right? Since the cost amounts here, 64, 70, and 76. Earlier we had 76 at 4, 70 at 4. Now we're going to have 4 at 64 and 2 at 70. And I need to correct myself on that. Earlier in the earlier example, it was a 70 at 2, okay? But now we're going 4 at 64 and 2 at 170. So there's going to be a difference in total value. Okay, so I've populated the first two so far. What did we do? I took A10 and I went in and I said, okay, well, if the last item's purchase went out first, we need to start at the beginning. And I took 4 at 64 and 2 at 170, right? Because we have 6 units left at the end. And I went and populated it down here. 4 at 64, multiplied the 4 by 64 gives us 256, and the 2 by 70 gives us 140. I then did the next one, B15, and you'll see in this one, 8 are left over at the end. Well, if we go to the very beginning, right, since the remaining items are still the items that we purchased first, well, there's 8 left over at 176, and that would be this right here. 8 times 176 is 1408. Now let's look here again. Same concept all over again. E60, 5 left over. So we're going to take the 3 at $75 and 2 at $65 and bring it down here. So E60, I went in and I populated the 3 at 75, which gives us 225. Okay. And then I went and populated the 2 at 65, which gives us 130. I then populated all the rest, and if you notice, I then stopped right here because the M91, all the others in between are very similar process, but the M91 is a little bit different because now there's a third item in here. They're showing us, okay, well, we have 3 items that we need to report for the M90. So let's go take a look at this one. M90 says there are 5 left over at the end of the year. So the last purchases are out, the last items purchased are out first, meaning that we go all the way to the beginning. And what do we have? Well, we have 2 at 108, 2 at 110 that were purchased, and we still have one more that we need to account for to equal 5, and that would be 1 at 128. And that's what we did here, and so you have 3 different line items for M90. Okay, the last one we're going to do, it's my favorite one, the easiest one ever, is going to be the weighted average method. So for the weighted average method, all we are doing is we're going to take each of the values here and multiply them together, and then divide them by the number of units purchased. So for instance, the first one, we're going to say take 4 times 64, and then we're going to take 4 times 70, and then we're going to take 4 times 76, and we're going to add those 3 values together. Then we're going to divide that amount by the number of units purchased each time. So here, 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12. So I'm going to prepare a little spreadsheet just to kind of illustrate that quickly to make it a little bit more clearer, and when we come back, we'll take a quick look at that. Okay, now let's take a look at the spreadsheet that I prepared and we'll work on it here. So if I take each of these separate purchases and I multiply them, the quantity purchased by the cost, and then I add the 3 together. So I'll do that right now. So we got the 4 here, so equals 4 times the $64. Okay. And then we'll do this one right underneath it so it's a little bit clear, equals 4 at the 70. And then we have equals 4 at the 76. Okay. Now we have the total amount here, and we're just going to add them together. So we have the 256 plus 280 plus 304. And then we want to take each of the amounts purchased, the quantities, and add them together. So we have 4 plus 4 plus 4. So 4, 4, 4, and we have 12. So now we're going to get the weighted average. How do we do that? We take the total cost of everything purchased, divide it by the number of units purchased, and it's going to give us our weighted average cost. So now let's go take a look at how we're going to apply that on the spreadsheet. Okay, so now we know we have the weighted average at 70. So what do we have to do then? We have to go back and look and see, okay, well, we have 6 units left on hand. We'll go here, we'll take the 6 units, drop it in, we put in our weighted average cost, and then we get our ending inventory total cost. Okay, now I'm going to do one more. I'm going to do B15, and all you'll have to do is just apply the process to the rest of the other items here. But I'm going to do this one, illustrate this one in the spreadsheet, and then I'll simply just populate the information here. All right, so let's go to the spreadsheet, and we can take a look at B15. So what do we have here? We have now a beginning one. So the first one that we had, we didn't have any beginning inventory, and I'm going to illustrate now one with a beginning inventory. So we have the beginning inventory amount of 8, and we're just going to multiply it by the 176. We're taking the 8, multiply it by the 176. We're going to take the 4 and multiply it by the 158. Okay. We're going to take the 3, multiply that by the 170. Then we're going to take the 6 and multiply that by the 10. Then we're going to add together each of the number of units either on hand or purchased. So we have 8, 4, 3, and 6. So let's go over here. We'll say equals 8 plus 4 plus 3 plus the 6. All right, so we have 21. Now let's total up all these units, all the costs of everything that we had purchased. So we're just going to go here. Okay, and then we're going to take the 21 and divide it into the 3654. And that's going to give us $174 as the per unit cost. Okay, so I've populated everything in for the weighted average method. And as you can see here for B15, we had 8 left over. We determined that the weighted average cost per unit is 174, and we simply just come in here and multiply the 8 by 174 to get 1392. So all you'll need to do is apply that process to the rest here. Obviously, I'm referring to your homework assignment, which should be exactly the same or fairly close to it. Okay, so that concludes the practice recording of problem 7-5A, and good luck on the assignment, everybody.